for me at church and I'm healed. I mean, of course, I still couldn't relate to that, but that began my search in earnest to discover the truth. Before, I was just trying to prove she was wrong. From that point onwards, I just wanted to know the truth. It took another 6 months, and then it was through a video about anti-Christian symbolism in rock music, because I was into music in those days. And I watched that late one night and I just realised it wasn't my wife who had been brainwashed, it was me. And I kind of struggled for about 24 hours, but I prayed the next afternoon and asked the Lord for a sign, being a Jew. And he gave me one a week later, and that was the beginning of our journey, so that was 22 years ago. Okay, who's next? Grab the mic. Thanks. Oh, hang on, I forgot to turn this thing on. Give me 1 minute and I'll get it right. I knew I'd do that. Well, I need my wife with me to remind me of these things, you see.
My question follows on, do you primarily classify yourself as a Jew or as a Christian?
The answer to that is yes. I will answer the question. I'm a Jew. You can't, when you're born again, it's your spirit that's born again. Your soul isn't born again. Your soul needs to be renewed by the washing of the Word. And of course, our bodies stay the same, unfortunately. We're getting these new Mark II versions soon, right? The ones that don't get aches and pains and eat glasses and get sick. So I'm still a Jew. In fact, I feel when I first got born again, I thought, now I'm not a Jew anymore, I'm a Christian. But then the Lord spoke to me, and about 6 months later, over the course of one weekend, He sent 3 people to share with me about how amazing it was to be a Jew who believed in the Lord. And I had another born again experience. And the more I read, the more I learned, the more Jewish I actually felt, because everything in the Bible is Jewish. The Messiah is a Jew. All of the disciples were Jewish, and almost everything in the Bible is Jewish. And the more I read, the more Jewish I felt. And there's 2 very irrational things in the world today. Number one, when they say you can't be a Jew and believe in Jesus, and you should believe in Jesus, because He's the King of the Jews, even the Romans knew it. And of course, the other really irrational thing in the world today is people who say, I love God, and I don't like or hate the Jewish people. Because, and it's sad, it's true that many Christians don't even have the revelation that Jesus was, is, and will be Jewish. So I see myself, to answer your question, sister, I see myself, you could say I'm a Jewish Christian. Now, some Jews don't like to be called Christians because of the connotations of the word. I know some Christians that don't want to be called Christians because of the connotations of the word. Because a lot of very unpleasant things have been done in the name of the Lord, very sadly, over the last 1900 years, and not just to Jews. So you could say I'm a Jewish Christian, or I'm a Messianic Jew. The word Christian or Messianic is exactly the same word, it's just a different language. So Messiah comes from the word Mashiach, which means the anointed one, which is the word of Christ. So I'm a Messianic Jew, and you're a Messianic Christian, you could say, but we believe we're a Messianic Gentile. I don't quite like that word, Gentile. You could say are you English? Okay, so you could say you're a Messianic English person, and I'm a Messianic Jewish person, because the English or the Jewish really is our physical background, and the Messianic or the Christian, which is the same word, would be the way we would describe ourselves spiritually. So does that answer your question? Okay, you're welcome. Mike?
I'm Roland, and I'm known as a city preacher, so I've got the Bible.
Good, that's a good place to start.
I'd like to refer to your own testament there, Isaiah 25, and the first verse at the end. It says, "Thy counsels of old are faithfulness and truth." And I'd like to say, first of all, that I very much like, contrary to what I understand has happened to you, I was told about it last night at about 12 o'clock. I'm very sorry that has happened to you. I would like, as a preacher in Gloucester, to welcome you as a Messianic Jewish brother in Jesus Christ, and your wife is as a sister, who put their faith in Jesus Christ as Lord and Saviour.
Thank you very much.
Praise the Lord.
Thank you.
And almost in a bit of humour, I hope you won't mind, because I would like to ask what the Clash of Kingdoms actually means, rather than what's been in the paper.
Okay.
And I'd like to ask what Wonder Man is all about, and I hope you'll show us all that. But can I just ask this question? I'm led to believe that Jewish people, it might be a stereotype, and I apologise for that, Jewish people are fairly astute about dodgy financial deals. Do you think it was fair to hire you a hall for £800? I think that's what's being charged, I may be wrong here, but a lot of money. And then the person who hired you that hall for about £800 went and contacted the clergy not to come to the event you held in that hall. As a Jew, how do you feel about this? And do you feel that somebody of another race or religion would have been treated in this fashion?
Well, I wasn't aware of the financial details, but one part of me would say that's a lot of money, but then on the other part would say, well, we're not, we are seeing what's happening in the natural here, but we're not seeing what's happening in the spiritual. And I had a sense even yesterday, before I arrived, that no matter what happens here in the physical realm, just our being here and our getting into the cathedral could have very dramatic and significant consequences in the spiritual realm. We don't know that. And what I thought I might say to the Dean about what he's done is, number one, that he should consider his own spiritual situation, but one day he will have to stand before the Lord and account for the reason why he told other people not to come to hear the truth. And I wouldn't want to be standing in his shoes, but perhaps we should even pray for him and say, Father, we just lift up the Dean in the name of Yeshua, in the name of Jesus. We lift that man up, Lord. We pray that even now, as we gather together, Lord, you would speak to his heart, Lord, you would have mercy upon him, and Lord, that you would overrule the wrong teaching that he's had in his life, and the wrong orientation that he has chosen to align himself with. And Father, you would have mercy on that man, and you would bring him even to the meeting tonight, and that he would repent before you, and he would repent for the people of Gloucester for the things that he has done, in Yeshua's name. Amen. The Clash of the Kingdoms, maybe just to whet your appetite, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'll probably speak about it tonight. But I just read a book a few months back that impacted me deeply. The book was called Who Told You That You Were Naked by Victor Schlatter. People want to take note of that. And of course it comes from the passage in Genesis chapter 3 where the snake just lied to Adam and Eve. And basically, for me, it answers a lot of questions as to why the church is where the church is. Basically, because there is a clash. There's only two kingdoms in the world: the kingdom of God and the kingdom of darkness. And this, the basis of the book is the fact that the Western world, and very, very much of the Western church, is far more influenced by Greek philosophy. The kingdom of Greece, or really the kingdoms that we see in the image that Nebuchadnezzar saw in Daniel chapter 2, rather than being in the image of the Son of God, and rather than having a Hebraic mindset, the church has a Greek mindset, and therein, really I believe lies the root of the problem. And then I'll speak more about that tonight. But then to tie that into the one new man, which obviously it comes out of, where is it, Ephesians, I think it is, isn't it? Yeshua, before the new covenant, there was a war, and it was everything Jewish in and everything non-Jewish out. And then Yeshua clearly said he came to tear down the war, which he did, to make male, female, Jew and Greek, free and bond, in the spiritual realm, equal, in that anybody can be saved. But then, of course, when these wolves in sheep's clothing turned up, they began to re-establish the foundation of the wall. And then our friend Constantine arrived on the scene. And Constantine and the Romans were excellent wall builders, as we know. And they rebuilt the wall. Now it was everything Jewish out, and a lot of paganism in. So we really do need to get back to our roots. We need to get back to we need to decide which kingdom we want to live in. And not just live in, but we need to decide which kingdom we want to live out of, which is different. And we need to truly become this one new man that the Lord was talking about. And if you want to know what that is, I guess several people have come up with different versions, but just maybe going back to my testimony, when I was born again, I was really born again. I mean, it was a dramatic 24-hour revelation. 1 minute I'm in the kingdom of darkness, 24 hours later I'm in the kingdom of light. And every time I went to church in those days, as I walked into a church, I used to think to myself, I hope my deceased forefathers can't see where I am. Well, it wasn't funny. It was very dramatic, actually. Because here I was feeling more Jewish than ever, but here I am in a place that had no connection, no visible connection whatsoever to the way I'd been brought up. And nobody wants to tread on the memory of your forefathers. You don't want to do that. But truth is truth. That's the price sometimes you have to pay to follow the truth. But if I walked into a church and there was an Israeli flag or a menorah or a Star of David or a shofar, something, anything that would have connected that church to my background, it would have made my early days a lot easier in the faith. So hopefully does that answer your question, okay? And God bless you for your work out there on the street, brother. Okay.
David is, I was brought up a Christian, and a few years ago I discovered I was Jewish, so I'm now, like you, come into the belief, I say I'm a Messianic Jew, and everything's come alive for me, even though I never knew it was brought up in the Jewish faith. But I experienced a lot of anti-Semitism in the church throughout my life, and I never knew what it was until 2 or 3 years ago. Can you shed some light, which would be helpful, on how people, or how you would recognise replacement theology in the church today? Is there something you would look for, you would be able to identify?
It's probably something more that you don't see than something you would see. Because a lot of people have never heard the term replacement theology. A lot of people wouldn't even know what it meant. But just the fact that a church or a pastor or the people in the church had no real interest in what's happening in Israel, no love for Israel, not praying for Israel, they don't care, that to me shows the fruit. That is the fruit of replacement theology, because it was in the promotion here. It's what I believe. I believe that the Lord is coming soon. I believe that he can only come to Jerusalem, the undivided capital city of a nation called Israel. And the church is called to co-labor with God. That's 1 Corinthians 3:9. We're called to be his ambassadors. That's 2 Corinthians 5:20. In 3 Peter 2:9, we're told to hasten the day of the Lord's return. And a number of people have said to me, the situation in the Middle East is so bad, and it is, that it can't possibly have anything to do with God, but I would say the opposite is true. I would say because God is involved, because God is preparing to re-establish his kingdom on the earth in Jerusalem. That's why we see what we see. Because there is an enemy out there that wants to stop this. And so I believe it's incumbent. Psalm 122 verse 6 says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. It's not an optional choice. It's not just a good idea. It's a God idea. It's a command. He says, if you are part of my people, you pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Isaiah 62, 6 and 7, he says, you who mention my name, or you who call upon the name of the Lord, give him no rest. Do not remain silent, and give him no rest until he makes Jerusalem a praise in all the earth. So anybody who's not in that place, anybody who's not being a Ruth, a friend of Israel, an Esther, standing up for Israel, an Elijah type person, praying and interceding for Israel, I believe a deep